I got sidetracked, and they disapproved of that. So the financial system is likely to, it is collapsing, but it's collapsing and being reorganized at the same time. And that's an ongoing process. And one of the objections I have with the secret space program whistleblowers, besides the fact that I think that they're unpatriotic and their actions are more self-glorifying in the form of a secret society than they are truly beneficial to the world. Although it's because that program exists that I'm currently aware of the collapsing of the organization of the collapse of the currency system is in full swing. So with that being how it is, and many wealthy countries and influential countries turning to gold to back their currency. I mean, we had our gold rush in the United States way back when, you know, there'd be gold and then there are hills. We already had that, and Donald Trump's grandfather was actually part of that and built hotels there, and that was the beginning of the real estate empire. And it was smart business, you know. You go where the business is, you go where the gold is. That's a smart thing to do from a monetary point of view. And that's what we're talking about, money. Russia and China are still pulling gold from the ground. They have gold mines, large ones. And the United States, we had our gold rush, and whether or not Fort Knox is empty or it's full, it's not full. If it's full of other things that can be used as currency. But my understanding is that it was robbed or emptied. Not so much in a coup, but in a power grab back in probably the 70s. So we turn our attention to places that have gold, places that have resources that are worthwhile. So if you imagine that the monetary system doesn't exist, you have choices of things that have value. You know, what are the basic necessities of life? Food, shelter, clothing. In the modern age, we'd add electricity and plumbing. I'll recap real quick, Peter, saying that the secret space program whistleblowers / insiders are letting us know, and they keep giving us false dates, which is one of my pet peeves, but the financial system that we have with the petrodollar, which is the global currency, is the dollar known as the petrodollar. And when we switched from gold backed currency under Nixon, I think it was Italy or France, I think it was France, that asked for their gold back because we were spending so much money in Vietnam and they didn't think it was worthwhile. So they asked for the gold back, and Nixon went on TV and said, in a interesting way, you can find it on YouTube, Nixon gold standard. He said, in a very polite, diplomatic way, hell no, we're not giving you your gold back. And then when at the same time apparently we were making a deal with the Saudis that OPEC would only sell oil in dollars. So that became the currency in which our dollar was backed. And agreements like this, especially even though we have 122 military bases that guard around Saudi Arabia and in the region, that's a lot of distance between here and there to secure the region, especially over time. So the petrodollar became a currency and a solution, but the only way that the world can maintain itself is with long-term contracts. And that's a key phrase, long-term contracts that are set in stone, essentially, because otherwise we enter into times like now where they're not using Iran and China and Russia are powerful enough in that region to go away from the dollar and to trade in other currencies, which they've been doing for a while, and the media hasn't covered it because it would cause panic. But I don't panic, and you shouldn't panic either, because they've been aware that the petrodollar is going to collapse for years, probably going back to like 2000, 2001. And to preserve our way of life, the military has been fighting, and the population has been blissfully ignorant, and that's why our veterans get no appreciation. But if you look at Venezuela with the starving and the civil war, you get a picture of why Americans' ignorance about, and not only America's ignorance of why our soldiers, or that they are fighting for us, for our way of life, which they are 100% doing. When you understand that, but then you look at how America is portrayed in the world, and we get blamed for everything. You know, it's like it is a giant conspiracy, but America is strong enough militarily to be the scapegoat of the world. Just the prospect of fighting Iran and Russia and China. I mean, we can't fight Russia. If Russia and the U.S. and China ever fought, it would be total devastation. They would just destroy the world. So that's the situation financially, and they keep coming up with dates that they're going to announce a transition. And it's been said many times that on Friday they'll make an announcement that no money can be withdrawn over the weekend. And then you'll wake up on Monday, and instead of having $100 in the bank, you have $75 in the bank. But I'm less optimistic about how that's going to go, so I say no, it's going to be $40 for every 100 you have. And then you're going to have to hope that there's an adjustment in inflation, or that the currency is, you know, that it adjusts, that $40 is now worth $100. At least within America, but outside of America, between America and other countries, it's not going to have as much value. Like right now, we're trading pallets of cash to China in return for all kinds of goods that are in the dollar store and the plastic crap they sell in Walmart. And China wants to, is ready to back Russia. Russia doesn't want to fight us. They better not. It would be suicide for America and Russia, or much of Russia and much of America, some of America, some of Russia, and certainly many other countries as well. And it would be a white genocide, so it would be totally irresponsible, and anyone who is cheering on a division between Russia and the United States is totally imbecilic and ignorant, or they're malicious and evil and treasonous. And that would include our media and many politicians, such as many liberals, John McCain. And but they're aware of the complexities, which are horrid and are all based around finances and oil. And the United States is now producing oil, but nonetheless we need to maintain control of the oil that OPEC has agreed to trade only in the dollar, because that is what gives our dollar value. And when China was a slow burn. They rose to power very slowly over thousands of years. They went like this, you know, for like thousands of years, which is how they built a huge empire with so many people that they have a problem. They have a problem with how many people they have, and that's why they're building other colonies in other countries. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But that's why they have the one-child policy. And if you look at how a one-child policy works, everyone wants sons because sons make money. But now those sons have no wives. And this is why polygamy, and if, you know, the Arab world just came to your mind when I said that, or Mormons, or you had like a bad reaction to it. Like, we have so many women that are like Lilith, you know, like they're so spoiled, so ignorant, so indoctrinated, so angry because they're told to be angry, because the elite pieces of shit that divide America so that they can control it, like the media with their dual citizenship. You can look into that yourself. I won't tell you more about that because it's complex, and I'm a patriot. And the only reason why I stand with Christians because I was raised a Christian, and we are a Christian nation, and the West is Christian. But they're invading us with Arabs and Africans, and it is an invasion, it is organized, and the goal is what's called the Cloward Piven strategy, which is to overwhelm our economic system. What's up, Allison? To overwhelm our economic system to the point that it collapses, and then it will be remade in a more fair way. But in reality, unless these contracts are ironclad and the people who are involved in all these backroom deals to make a transition from the petrodollar to a gold-based or merit-based, you know, actual meritocracy, how it should be, not quotas and, you know, minority reports. That's what ruined the car industry, was the mandatory quotas of minorities. It should just be the best person for the job, whatever it is. And while we're on the issue of minorities, let me say something. It's kind of interesting. In California, if you've seen the movie End of Watch, the blacks and the Mexicans have been, the gangs, not just the gangs, but I mean, if you're in a neighborhood, in a black neighborhood in the city, you're in a gang. And if you're not in a gang, then the gang is gonna beat the crap out of you until you join a gang. And it's an evil, and I'm not even gonna say it's necessary evil, because I'm not gonna make any excuses for it. I'm poor, and I'm not out raiding or doing dirt to get ahead. And a lot of white families were affected when the car industry shut down. Flint, Michigan, they made $80,000 a year. That was the average income. It was one of the highest incomes in in America, or maybe the highest. And then the car industry shut down, and now there's lead in the water because the liberal masters of that area were incompetent and grossly idiotic and didn't flush the pipes out after not using them for 4 months, which even then, it doesn't make sense. I think they used the wrong pipes, or I don't want to say that liberals intentionally poisoned an entire region. But yeah, I think they absolutely would do that. I think that they're much more evil than you think. If you look at Hollywood, what's happened recently with that actress, that's liberals. You know, those are the people that hate Trump. Those are the people that, you know, they're filthy, and that's the only way they can maintain their status. And in the 60s, the Republicans had the backing of big business, and it was the party of wealth. It was the party of wealth because big business and had lobbyists that were seeing to it that things were beneficial for big business. So I'll just say a intelligence agency, because I'm a patriot, and I know the world's complicated, and I respect that bad things have to be done. You know, the guy who shook California, can't judge them, but you can't judge him either. Anybody know what I was just talking about? Before my mind wanders like you wouldn't believe, since Easter. That was actually good. I kept a good train of thought there. I'm looking. Nobody's telling me what I was saying. That's because you don't know what I'm asking about. The topic was, oh yeah, so because, thank you, whoever just reminded me something about Republicans. I heard you. And Democrats and intelligence. So because the Republicans had the big money behind them, the Democrats made the decision, or I don't know if the Democrats made the decision. Well, I do know, because I know that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton ran cocaine, and that it led to major atrocities and many deaths in America, including in Oklahoma. And the main objection, but this is just my opinion, is that they blamed white patriot groups. You know, they used militias as their cover, and that's those are basically, at least back then, they were primarily patriots, and the membership was primarily white in most of those, and that's just because of the regional thing. But when you blame militias and you demonize militias when the militias didn't do it, and you just use them as cover, it's because you're corrupted and you're working under a foreign influence who has undue control over you. But the intelligence, and most of those operations are intelligence, let's just say all, and it was an atrocity. And real quick, like, it reminds me of the David Koresh thing. Like, that was in '93. I was 17 years old, and I just thought, oh, extremists living in a compound. You have to love the word compound. That's a call. It might come back through, and I might pause this for a second accidentally. But David Koresh, if you look on Amazon and you watch Rules of Intelligence, you'll see that David Koresh was truly living, literally, who have their own agenda. Be specific when you ask me questions, please. I like when people use a lot of words so I can understand. I'm very literal. So when you say, do they all have their own agenda, I'm asking, who is all? Because of course the answer is yes, but I don't know who you're asking about. So please ask again. David Koresh was just he walked the walk. He was the real deal. He fulfilled the literal prophecies of the 7 seals. He lived the exact way that it said to, and his followers, disciples, whatever you want to call them, his church, his congregation, they chose to play that role in the unveiling. Do they all have their own agenda? Agencies around the world. Europe's a fairly minor player in intelligence, in my opinion. Most of Europe is. America, Israel, Russia, Iran. Those are the main players as far as intelligence, I would say. I can't think of anyone else that's... I mean, the cartels have overlapping interests and alliances, so they also have intelligence within what they're doing. So the intelligence agencies of the world, and anything that will produce, and this is one of the reasons the disclosure, the changing of the monetary system from the petrodollar to the gold standard, thank you. The gold standard hasn't happened, is the complexity of how the banks are going to explain that the drug business and the money from the drugs is literally what has kept our country afloat. And because the banks and the bureaucrats are trapped by explaining or avoiding the fact that most of the money, the cash money that goes into the banks, is a direct result of the drug trade, and therefore the cartels and the traffickers to some extent. I still think we should, like, even if the economy will always need drugs, anyone who's adding fentanyl in it should be burnt alive. You know, if they're adding fentanyl, they should be, they should get death. We should still wipe out 90%, maybe 95% of the cartels. We don't need that many scumbags going back and forth, gang member pieces of shit going back and forth between Mexico and, through South America and wherever they're coming from out there, Colombia with the cocaine and stuff. We don't need all those scumbags going back and forth between our countries. We should legalize it and then allow them to have routes, and legalize it so we can at least have control over the purity and know that these pieces of shit are not adding fentanyl and carfentanil, which is a friggin' elephant tranquilizer, they say. No, that shit was made for the drug traffickers. Carfentanil did not need to be made. Morphine is considered strong by most standards. I've had a broken back since I was like 16. I've been taking opioid pain medication for almost 20 years. And morphine's whatever. Fentanyl is 1,000 times stronger. Now, that may sound glorious to some drug addicts or drug users, but it's like, if you like beer, you have a few beers, you feel good. Now get some 101 proof, like fire water. Have a couple shots of that, and you're gonna feel like crap. It hits you too fast. It's not good. And the pain relief, especially with the time release patches, like fentanyl, is goddamn no good. It's absolutely no reason that stuff needs to exist. Carfentanil is even stronger than fentanyl, and they say it's an elephant tranquilizer. Yeah, bullshit. Fucking bullshit. There's no way we needed that much carfentanil so that the fucking, 2 or 3 grains of that will kill a human being. Grains. 2 or 3 grains. I don't even know what a grain is when we're talking about carfentanil. But a grain is very small. So this stuff is so strong that if you got 3 grains of it, so in other words, if the dealers are going to be putting fentanyl or carfentanil into their heroin, or if they're complete scumbag, dirtbag pieces of crap that are trying to kill people and they want to put it in cocaine to make speedballs so people die, then they should be hung, burning alive while they hang by their arms, not their neck. Shit pisses me off. They're going to the pan and the hearts are more of stone than flesh. I'm having trouble processing this, but the hearts of flesh give hope. Any pharmaceutical that harms needs eliminating. Yeah, so before when my back first got really bad, I mean, it was broken when I was 16, period. But I was young, strong, and I'm stubborn. So my solution was to lift a lot of weights and build a lot of muscle, and I did so. I was very strong. But my body wore down, or my mind, or maybe I was just drinking too much and lost, and had too many hangovers, so I stopped exercising, like that, 5 days a week for an hour and a half, and that was needed to maintain the strength I had, which stabilized my injuries. So anyway, they didn't want to put me on opioids because you're too young to be in pain. Okay, well, I have a broken back, so why don't you suck it? But so they put me on other things first. They put me on gabapentin. Gabapentin is also called Neurontin, and it's not a narcotic. It's poison. It's a nerve toxin, and there's like 4 honest medications in the world. Tylenol comes from the willow tree. Marijuana has uses, at least in cannabinoids, painkillers, and stimulants. Whether it's coffee or there's this documentary, Drugs Incorporated or whatever, and I was watching it, and that's where I learned about the carfentanil. But they called cocaine America's cup of coffee, and I wanted to bitch slap them for saying that, because that's just like justifying, glamorizing, and normalizing a substance which the scumbag dealers are adding carfentanil and fentanyl to, and people are dying. But so with the gabapentin, I died. I heard my own flat line. I mean, it really puts you in a different place. Plus, there was a sleep medicine that they were giving me, because when you're in pain, you can't sleep. And I forget the name of it all the time, but that period of time was very difficult for me. It led to my death, and being reborn as a totally psychic, supernatural, basically walking dead. I had to deal with that for years. And I was 26 or so, 24, 25, 26. And that went on for a good 5 years. It was hell. It was hell. It's important to remember that suicide is forbidden. It is forbidden. Yeah, nobody likes pain. Nobody likes pain. And if they had just given me a reasonable dose of narcotic pain medicine, and the word narcotic, and the word, opioid crisis, You know, that's just cover for the cartel, because like I said, the cartels are what feed the bank. America is not importing anything, or it's not exporting anything. What the hell do we make? You know, we have around here we have two factories that make fiber, and we have one that makes fiber and one that makes glue. And you know how they make glue yellow? They use arsenic. So yellow glue sticks have arsenic, and I've watched the arsenic being poured into the vat. And then the guy who I worked with, who was a freak from Massachusetts, you know, like a Southie reject, he while it was like spinning and cooking, this big vat and the steam coming up, he'd like put his head over it. I'm thinking, that dude's like intentionally. And when you got done, like you had glue in your eyes, in your hair, all over you. And yeah, that was one of the positions there that everyone who worked there had to do sometimes. But Advil's more likely to harm your stomach than opioids are. And the cartel is clever, so they have a factory over the line in Mexico where they build pharmaceuticals, where they make pharmaceuticals. We should totally bomb that. We should bomb it. I don't know why we don't. Actually, I just told you why we don't, didn't I? Because that money is what is keeping our country afloat. So we're dependent on Mexico, and that's why they're being allowed to set up a friggin' refugee camp outside of our border, which is going to turn into a complete nightmare. And if we don't, at some point, use draconian measures and crush it and let them flee back to the ass end of South America, then we're going to collapse. And the liberals and the enemies of America who conspire against America on a regular basis will get what they want. It's a pretty dire situation. Hey, Deborah. America used to be admired, as it was referred to, as a breadbasket. Well, a breadbasket, I think, was literally an area of the country where we produced our food. And Florida was one of those parts. That's where we had our citrus, but we had a couple rusty winters, and now the food is being genetically modified. I don't know why. It's like the preservatives are built in or something. I mean, they could be making it really healthy, but I've seen some genetically modified food that I really wouldn't want to feed to anything. And they're saying that the GMO, when you eat the GMO food, you're getting the DNA, the altered, the genetically modified organism. You're eating that and you're getting the DNA of that. But it's like, let's say you ate deer. Let's say you ate fresh deer all the time. You know, like what then? Are you eating, like, are you getting like a huge amount of deer DNA? And yeah, the food is, I don't like the word poisoned, and I don't worry about the chemtrails, and I don't talk about them much. But 2 days ago, I mean, I'm sure there are some bad ones, just I hope they're using them in areas that, if there are areas that are, I mean, there are areas that if I was in charge, I'd drop cluster bombs on it right now. But I would rather do that and be honest about it than spray shit on them. I don't think there's any honor in that. But 2 days ago, totally blue sky, and there were like 6 planes. There were three lines of where planes had gone. And I see lots of planes and crafts. I don't talk about the planes much because I'm a good American, but I'm also a freak show, so you should expect that I would see things like that and they would be seeing me. So I leave this truth to be self-evident at this point. But I tried to do a live video, but because I was in front of my house, or because, you know, my phone shuts off on me sometimes when it shouldn't, or like twice last night, and that's, you know, they can remotely deactivate your phone. And when I say they, for me, I'm not even talking about people. I mean, yeah, sure, they could do it too, but we're talking about God, you know, and angels and galactics, or whatever the hell you want to call them. The hidden, not the hidden rulers, like, you know, behind the banking system, human dudes. I'm talking about the ones who control the weather. But anyway, I was trying to do a video, I failed. And there were 3 lines of, you know, and they were much wider and lower than normal. And I was like, whatever. I tried to get a video. There were like 5 planes, and then I saw 2 more. And I knew some people would be like, oh my God, chemtrails. But I am literally fearless. And it's not even a matter of bravery. It's just how I'm made. It's part of my character defect, if anything. That's what I would say, honestly. And that night, you know, the sky was pretty carpeted. It was pretty smooth with clouds. And then yesterday it rained. And rain is good. Rain is good. So just because you see something in the sky that you don't understand, or you think, you know, everybody has fear attached to it, you don't need to fear too. Like, you can hang out with them, that's cool. You can hang out with the fear guys, you know, who want to, like, you know, it's like, and it's funny too, because they think they're warriors, not warriors, warriors with an A, for talking about what's going on in the sky. But as far as those things, but I'm like, what are you gonna do about it? This is what I say this to people. I'm like, what purpose does it serve? What are you going to do about it? And they have no response, because they're like, well, people should know. Shouldn't people know that they're going to be dying and choking and, you know, just dead? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's, you know, oh, thank God for you. Thank God for you. You're right. Let's say that this guy was right, that that's what's going on. Yeah, absolutely. People should have their last months, years, whatever, thinking about how they're being killed and they're dying. Like, what kind of an evil sack of shit would think that, like, that's something that people need to be, like, aware of? You know, that's why I speak vaguely about evil. I'm like, yeah, you know, kill it. You know, let it die bloody. Light it on fire. Kill it with fire. But that's the extent of what I say about that, for the most part, because the world is complicated, and some of it's so complicated that, especially as far as the duality and the good and the evil, that I don't even like the show True Detective, where they talk about the circle. You know, it's like, do those horror shows of individuals just like take turns reincarnating and destroying each other? I mean, there are sadistic people and sadomasochistic people, you know, it's too horrible to think of. so I don't think about it much. But since I thought about it yesterday, since I've been thinking about watching Evil die and seeing it purged on 5/27, which is necessary, but you know, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Somebody said that, something like that. One of the founding fathers, I think. I think he said it was the cost of freedom was eternal vigilance. And that means to be guarding against evil in perpetuity. It's not a one-time thing. When your phone shuts off, I mean full battery and it turns off. No. Like if I go out on a walk, whether I have my Wi-Fi on or off, or it should work either way, especially with what I believe is full speed, but my messenger turns off. Sometimes I can message, but I can't go live, but I can take photos. But when I go to meet, or to possibly meet, like my other friends, my phone will shut off and many features aren't available. But when the phone shut off last night, it was plugged in, it was charging, and it was good to go. It shuts off when it wants. Or if I'm, like last night, what's her name? I have face blindness to some extent, a great extent, and name blindness too. But she commented on one of my videos last night. We were talking, and she was saying that God is everywhere. It's not male or female, and it's not a spirit. It's just like everything. And I know the answer to that. And I can say that she's half right and half wrong. But at the time, I was like really put on the spot. I'd just been on a long walk, and I think, and it was after I had gone flying, so I was vulnerable, and my eyes were like swollen shut, and the questions were such that I couldn't answer them, so my phone shut off. So there's things I can't say, but I can easily defend the fact that I can't say some things by saying, what are you doing with what I am teaching you? You know? Or, you know, you believe what I say, then you should be sharing it. And when people are doing that, when people are ready, you know, when there's like huge UFOs hovering over every city, you know, people will be ready to listen, and they'll have already heard everything that Gaia has to say, so maybe they'll listen to me, unless the elites manufacture some kind of a spiritual head of the one world religion. That would be something if I was the head, huh? I'd be like Dragon Law. Line them up. Line them up. If they cooperate, they get one in the back of the head, and if they don't, they burn. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty brutal like that. How's it going, Beth? Did I miss any other... Oh, amitriptyline. No, I that is one, but that's not the one. And Flexeril is really bad too. Flexeril and gabapentin are poison. there was a class action lawsuit for people that had been harmed by gabapentin, and I tried to join it. It was on, it literally, I went to the store and there was a box of matches, and I picked it up and it said, "Were you injured by gabapentin?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I died." So I called them and they sent me a, it was probably the company itself. I actually think that they friggin', like, it's really weird that that particular drug thing was in the one country store that I go to. It was a whole box of them. It was a lot of, I mean, it could have been a coincidence, but it could have been put there just so they could, like, be like, "Hey, we really screwed you over. Here, contact us, and then we'll tell you that you don't have a case, and you know, you'll forget about it." You sent my link to your brother. That's cool. I don't know which link. I got like a whole hell of a lot of them by now. So I told you about the money. If you, I don't know when you guys tuned in, I can't remember, but I talked about the financial system and how the secret space program is kind of involved in that. I'll do another one in a little while, and I'll talk about the fourth dimension, and I should really talk more about Easter. Like, do one more dedicated directly to that. But I get off topic. It's not just my ADD, which I don't know if it exists. Basically, I'm a idiot savant if I'm a genius. That's why I called Kenya last night for 46 minutes, and it didn't even cross my mind that it might cost $200 friggin'. This one, oh, this link, that's cool. And others, he sees more than most. Yeah, people will, that's good, I'm glad to hear that. People will be seeing more, and that, you know, I got a friend who's out in California who's on a regular basis taking video, like daily, of the other planets, and it kind of blows my mind. Frederick Scott, and he won't like endorse me or like mention me, but I'm like a bad penny, you know, for like religion, ufology, you know, like, and I'm smarter than the elite, so I know what they're doing, you know, so everyone's invested in, like, not silencing me, just they observe, you know. If you watch Queen of the Damned, the Talamasca, like, if things got really quiet for a while, I was posting and not hearing from anyone, and this was before Easter and all that even happened, and I remember posting, "Who the hell are you guys, the Talamasca?" Because the thing with Dan Brown got me a lot of recognition in Hollywood, but in such a way that nobody, I mean, they did the show Ghosted, which is, a lot of my experiences are in there, but they do it in like a comedy way, like it's a joke. But anyway, yeah, when you have someone who's like, "Yeah, I'm Thoth-Atlantean, and I've been visited and abducted by, or taken by UFOs and crafts for at least 20 years, and I was also known as Quetzalcoatl and Lord Pakal and Hermes Trismegistus, Ningishzida, and that's just the names we have within recorded history. But like I said, the timelines are all obfuscated, and they know that it's true, and they know that I'm up there flying around, and they know that when I say something, it's going to happen. And just yesterday, I was posting about Mexico, and people were like thinking, what the hell is he talking about that for? And it hadn't been on the news. At least I don't watch the news that much at all. But today I put the news on, and yesterday I said that they'd invade to some extent before the purge on 5/27, and today, they arrived outside our border, where they're probably going to set up a freaking refugee camp, and every idiot that those South American countries want to get rid of, they're going to send them this way. And the ones who don't get disappeared on their way through Mexico. And if Mexico wasn't a bunch of treasonous, we have a lot of agreements with Mexico, and if they weren't affiliated with La Raza and trying to destroy our country, La Raza is worse than the Bloods and the Crips. The Bloods and the Crips are under control. They're controlled, as is the Mob Peru, which I posted about last night. But La Raza, those are the guys, the mayor and the police chief of California, in that town where the police let the illegal immigrants and the minorities attack, assault, beat, chase, hit with signs, sticks, and rocks in California. And then the mayor said, well, they shouldn't have come here. That's why I want to see California slide into the ocean. Violence is sacred. Like if you're into fighting for fun, that's cool, but I'm not, and I've been around long enough, I'm old enough, I'm injured enough that I don't fight to wound anymore. If I have to fight you, I'm going to put you in the dirt, or at least put you on the ground, and then they can put you in the dirt later. But California allowed that to happen. And America's old enough and wounded enough and fed up enough that America's becoming the same way. It's just, I speak for the trees, and most of America, the men are the trees. And they're not going to say this stuff because they'd be attacked, they'd be blacklisted. But like I said, I was made for this. But La Raza is they're a terrorist organization. They're an anti-American, treasonous outreach of the intel and the liberals who have been working together. And like I said, the monetary thing with the drug cartels and the banks needing that money to keep our economy going, it's a deal with the devil. And a side effect of that deal with the devil they did is that La Raza is politically powerful enough, and the media totally doesn't cover it, right? Not even Fox News. That's why, people are like, oh, well, Fox News is so, And it's like, no, Fox News is punks. They're punks. They're not like as maliciously evil as the rest of the mainstream media, which is like making people as stupid as possible. The media makes people as stupid as possible. They were talking about that Stormy Daniels thing, and it's like, who paid the hooker? Who paid the fucking the stripper? You know? And it's like, you know, they're just, they're guttural. They're, you know, they're low end. They live from their belly button down. You know? They live from their belly button down. There's nothing going on upstairs. They're dumb as dirt, dumb as rocks. They're fucking retarded. Idiots. Idiots. You know? They live through their genitalia, describing the different uses of their genitalia. It's bottom feeders. It's just low. It's just low. You know? Your like chakra system, your genitals are red. Your just above that is orange. Your stomach is yellow. Your heart is green. Your throat is blue. Indigo is your forehead, and violet is the light that comes out the top of your head. Creates the double torus, electromagnetism, and they don't have that. They're below the belly button. You know, if the indigo is the purple light at the top, then the closest they're ever going to get to purple is the purple in the infrared spectrum below the red. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Indigo and violet are purple. And then it starts over red. So they're like below. They're in the subhuman. They're in the sub, you know, they're in the infrared. They're low. They're low frequency for humans. But that's how and that keeps them dumb. You know, your heart is a brain, and if your chakras are activated and you're in your, you know, mammalian mind, where you're using your cognitive abilities and you feel safe, then your heart is a second brain, and this is science. Your heart is 65% neural cells. Neural means brain, and brain in nerves, neural nerves are run by hormonal impulses. The electricity is hormonal impulse. But if they keep you in the fear and thinking about low-end things like, you know, the hooker and the conspiracy, or right now they're talking about the Cosby trial, you know, if he hadn't spoken out against the corruption in black youth and by black youth and their pants hanging off their ass, you know, and how broken the African American system is, because that's how the liberal slave masters control them. If he hadn't talked about that stuff, they would have left him alone. He's like 80 years old. You know? It's sad. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's a bastard. I don't know. But that's why, at 80 years old, that's why they're messing with him. And that's what's on TV right now. So, you got Stormy Daniels, a prostitute. You know, you got the Russia collusion, and we've got videotapes of people who work at CNN saying, yeah, there's no story, it's all fake, it's just what the idiots that watch our channel want to see, you know, the high drama on the open seas. And that's what they give you. They'll give you what you want to sell advertisements. But this is what I do. I tell you the truth. And anyone who speaks, there's no one who speaks the truth like I do in the world. There's just not. but I'm me. I was made for this. But people who speak the truth are unpredictable. But like I said, I'm a patriot. I love America, which is why I know we need to have a purge, and I know the rest of the world does too, because they say all that's necessary for evil to thrive is for good men to do nothing. Good men used to mean good men, the divine masculine, the divine man. Like the movie 300. Like those guys put it all on the line, and they did a great job doing it because they were right and they were just, and the causes I stand behind are right and just. What's happening in South Africa, where you got multiple men gang raping, a 3-year-old child while the parents are choking on their blood watching. I mean, those people are evil. You need to send in the sweepers. You need to kill those guys. You do. They have to die. They have to die. That whole country, all it does is blame white people. And without white people, they would starve. Like South Africa, Nelson Mandela was, probably had an IQ of 50. He wasn't a good guy. His wife was worse. Just awful people. But they weren't in their higher mind. They were in their lower mind, in their basic reptilian mind. And the reptilians, they're just in the primitive part of their mind. And how are they going to evolve if they're living in their anus and their genitals? That's where their head is at, and their ass. So how are they going to evolve? They're not going to evolve. And that's, so, and it's not to say that others can't, but those ones are too invested. And the way that this guy, Cyril, who's the president of the ass crack of the world, known as South Africa, he wanted to get elected, so he appealed to the black majority, and his solution was to give them the land of the whites, who farm and feed the country. But they don't think. Their heads are in their anus. They just hate. They're just reptilian. They are reptiles. They're reptiles, and they're too old to change. They're too old to change. So they need to die. They need to be exterminated. And the next generation can be taught respect and reverence. Reverence for their own life. Reverence for the life of the hand that feeds them. Race is a huge issue in politics, and it's been weaponized by the left. And if you thinking that it's just about black and white and Mexican, then you're an American, or an average person, which is fine. But in Africa, there's like 10,000 tribes there. There's tribes, and just in Kenya alone, there's like, let's say 5 tribes. One has electricity, and I forget the name of the town, but they do fishing and they do livestock. And then they have like a Gaza Strip, and on the other side of the Gaza Strip, like where there's constant fighting, and they hear gunshots constantly, which is them fighting against the Kopo, and the Kopo are constantly raiding Kenya. And they travel like huge distances to do these raids. Like, you gave me a map and 300 men, we could build some camouflage positions and if they, you know, had reasonable amounts of what's necessary to war against invaders, we could wipe them out, you know. We could dissuade them from invading, or if they continued, then we would just continue wiping them out because they're evil and they would die. But the powers that be use minorities, and they consider them to be easily controllable. You can look this up in history, that this is the way the left views women, but mainly minorities, that they're easily controlled. And that's how Kenya stays destabilized. The Kopo tribe, K-O-P-O-T, which I posted about, they let them, the governments let them raid the rest of the country and into Uganda. So they're raiding Kenya and Uganda. And it's a tribe of 1 million people. A tribe. And they don't intermarry outside the tribe. Like, these tribes are racist as hell. And they're constantly warring. And that's just one area of Africa. There's like so many. If there's not race involved in war and politics, then it's ethnic. So anyone who thinks the world would be better without white people is fucking stupid. They're dumb, they're ignorant, they're retarded. And you should just say, you're fucking retarded. Like, you're dumb as shit. Like, you don't know a goddamn thing about the world or about history. You're a fucking embarrassment. Not just to your race, but to, like, humans, because you're so fucking stupid. Like, go look at Africa, ethnic cleansing. And guess what? They don't have CNN, you know, giving them marching orders, you know, telling them what to hate, you know, why they hate white people, why they hate Trump supporters. That's just their custom, man. They've just been doing that for, like, ever. And they don't have enough water, but they're greedy, so they keep increasing the dowry so they can sell off their daughters in marriage. But there's not enough cows because there's not enough water, so they do more and more raiding so they're just constantly stealing the cows from each other. And the governments don't want to get involved. You don't want to get involved? No, you love it, because you're corrupt. You're corrupt governments. You're corrupt governments, and you're allowing your people to be brutalized by those you see as easily controlled, primitive, and violent, and reptilian. And you're controlling the reptilians. And it's the same thing in our cities in America with the gangs. You know, it's like a default setting. Like, every ethnicity or race has a default setting. You know, Africans are tribal. You know, I don't know much about Mexicans, but I've been to Brazil, and that place is lawless. They're disrespectful and rude. So, I mean, you can look at any ethnicity or race or color and look at what they're like in their home country. Don't look at how they are in America. Look at where they come from. And you'll see it's consistent. And one of the books, there were 2 books that were in my life that affected me. And one was one about Tutankhamun. Egypt called to me from a young age, man. And I don't mean Egypt like Egyptians. I mean you know, like the Sphinx is older than the dynasties of Egypt. Like, things are older than the world wants you to know. Than, you know, the power. Like I said, the timeline. They hide the friggin' timeline. And that's why when I say I'm 400,000 years old, and I say I'm 4,000 years old, because 400 million sounds too old. But look at the timeline. I mean, you don't know how long you've been here, and maybe you've been doing the same thing in all your lives. This that I do, what I do, this is what I've been doing in all of my lives. That's why there was a purge in the Yucatan. You know, that's why Lord Pakal had a device through which he could see invisible things. Hello, what am I holding in my hand? What do I show you? You know, Thoth, you know, wisdom and the moon. You know, this is who I am. This is what I do. And as far as the Christian thing, Yeshua, yeah, you know, I'm Yeshua. You know, and I'll post the pictures of the conversation about Revelations, which pissed me off yesterday. But you know, once I share something, even if I don't want to, once I do, it's like, you know, that door closes behind me and I'm forthcoming with the information. I can't read the grand event. Yeah, no wonder I feel tired. Yeah. 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 Yeah, these are, yeah, like, yeah, no wonder I'm tired. Thank you. Antonella wants me to mention the grand event, I believe. Hello, Johnny E. Comey. I don't know what a Comey is. Siamo pronti assai messi. Assai messi. Il grande event grazie per tutto quello che tai, Johnny. Antonella is interesting. So the grand event she's talking about, and I don't have any knowledge of this, but she's someone that I count as a friend and not just a contact, so I roll with what she says as best I can. Even though it's in Italian usually, or other languages, which are just interesting. So she says in 6 months something good happens. And maybe in 6 months something good does happen. Oh, she said that we'd go into the 5th dimension. So maybe dimensions are like clicks of a dial. And when we went into the 4th dimension on Easter, that was like a full click. And then the world, like, you know, there were like vibrations and everything, and everyone was like, oh my God. But I think a few days later, or like a week later, and I say we went into 4, 5, 6 at Earth in general, but maybe instead of it being 4, 5, 6 for everyone, for Earth, maybe it was like 4.32, you know, maybe lesser adjustments of the dial. But she says we're entering the 5th dimension in 6 months, and I'm doing all I can to speed things along. I know that the purge of the evil has to happen. I'm considering doing another Easter type event, but I'd probably be wise to at least find a holiday that was remotely related to do it on, so it's not just a constant drain on my energy. So yeah, Earth it's above the 4th, but when she said the 5th in 6 months, the 5th dimension, Earth enters it, and I am in the 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensions. That's probably why my body is. That's probably why my energy is not great. But I'm trying harder. Just because I'm in the higher dimensions doesn't mean that doesn't give me an excuse to let my body like just get weaker. You know, like I need to fight a little bit harder there. Just like I'm asking you guys to fight harder for the truth. I need to fight harder for my body and the 4D. Which I guess is where, well, obviously my body doesn't stay in the 4D, but nonetheless, at this moment, I'm in the 4D. But I think we're in like 4.3 because I felt some shifts after 4. So, but maybe because it's a big splash or like a big change, maybe instead of like dropping a pebble and watching the water ripple. Anyway, that's that. One more thing. So the other day I was walking and I was talking to Bruce Lee. So I was talking to Bruce Lee the other day, and I was like, "What's up? What's up, man? Like, what's going on?" And he was like, "Pursue excellence in all things." And I was like, listening, and he was like, "Be excellent in everything that you do." And I started to tell him how great he is. I was like, he's like, silence. He said, silence. And then he says, imagine excellence in all things. He was with me for like 2 minutes. I could totally see him. And my ability to like visualize is horrible because I have face blindness. So when I see something, it's real. So again, he repeated it in his Bruce Lee talk. I don't know if I could even talk how he does. Create excellence in everything that you do. Imagine excellence in everything. And I did. I looked around and I imagined everything I seen being as good as it could be. Bruce Lee was a dragon too. That dude, you know why Bruce Lee is a secret? Because he was the soul of China. He was the soul of China. And not just like, I mean the soul. He was the greatest. He was the greatest everything that is Chinese culture. And I was reminded of him in a vision I had, which was what? Ashakwazi or something. I don't remember. It was like a week ago and I posted it. I remembered to write it down before I went to bed, and it turned out that it brought us to Bruce Lee saying, "It's like a finger pointing at the moon." And what that means is your anger is not your anger. Your anger masks other emotions. And that's an important thing to remember. And to put emotion in everything you do. And don't be a lazy reptile. You know, like if you're angry, figure out what the actual emotion is behind what you feel. Otherwise, you'll be like the Copo tribes, raiding endlessly and mindlessly while creating nothing. Or the black South Africans who are trying to exterminate the whites who feed them just because they can't govern themselves. And they need somebody to blame, and they're blaming the people who feed them. So that's why I side against the Copo tribe and I'm urging the world to do the same, because it's a huge problem in Kenya. And the white South Africans are literally fighting for their lives, and I want them to totally annihilate the EFF and the other lunatic idiots, reptiles over there that will never create do, build, or be productive, and all they are is they're just using resources that people that might potentially contribute something to the world could use. And this is why the purge is important.